Hi, I'm Reverend MeeLing. I've been known by a few names: Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Susan MeeLing, Lady MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle. I'm going to go over my short book, Finding the Silver Lining, written by me, Susan MeeLing, to explain certain specifics in regards to this book by the specific aspects. So I'll show you the pages, that way you can have that in that regard. And so in reference to the childhood aspects, there is at least when I was growing up in New Jersey, at the Freehold Raceway Mall, there is a 2-story carousel, and it is on the second floor, which is next to the arcade, at least when I was growing up going there as a child. And so there is that. That kind of really stuck out to me. In regards to the aspects of the story, my son genuinely tried to tell me that he thought that it was better to say that his sister made me fatter than he did when I was pregnant with each of them individually. He was educated very quickly on that. So this is the next page. So you can read that. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly so that way I can explain the aspects of. So in reference to the jelly beans, my daughter had gotten out of her room and ninja'd down the stairs while I was doing laundry. And she got out of her room so quick. She's very much my daughter. Very much my daughter. She knew how to get past where I was at in regards to being upstairs because I had candy on the top of the refrigerator. And it was Easter time, so she had gone to get the candy that she knew she couldn't have at that time. And I have a thing where they had to eat 2 healthy things, and in regards to snacks, and then they could have candy, and that would be after lunch or after dinner, either way. Technically both, but in regards to the candy aspect. She had ninja'd up the refrigerator, my daughter, because of how I grew up, very much so. And when I saw her at the top of the refrigerator, I had to wait for her to come back down, because by the time I got to the kitchen, it was one of those, okay. And so, she did that knowing that I was doing laundry. And I had, Ganesh in the room, my Great Dane, and he's just laying there. It's like, you could have given me a warning, that she was, doing stuff. And instead, he just kind of, those who have had a Great Dane and, grew up or have had children in an area that the Great Dane is accustomed to, just, I mean, he just kind of looked at me like, oh, I thought she was going to go to the bathroom, so what's the big deal? And it's like, yeah, but she went down the stairs. There's a difference. I'm just going to throw that out there. And she didn't just go to the bathroom and then go back to her room. She left and then went down the stairs. No, nothing. And not a guard dog. Ganesh was not a guard dog. No. It's a good dog, not a guard dog. And so, in that regard, he just kind of, no big deal. And so I made sure to get my daughter back to bed and stuff like that, and tucked her in and read her another story after getting her cleaned up from those who know how black jelly beans are. She just covered in that. And I was like, oh, okay, come on, let's get you cleaned up. I already had you take a shower earlier, but okay, fine. Fine. Brush your teeth and that sort of thing. And then tucked her into bed and then went back to doing the laundry after checking on my son and making sure that he was okay. But he was already asleep, so it was one of those, okay, went back and finished up laundry, cleaned the house, mom stuff. And so that whole thing. And then the mechanic story is in reference to, those who have been in a mechanic shop in the 1980s and 1990s, you know what type of posters were on the wall that the guys in the mechanic shop were like, no, don't look. It's like, okay, I'll just look at the ceiling. Whoop-de-doo. Go ahead and like try to cover up all those posters on the wall. First off, you're not tall enough to get to all of them because that particular garage had a lift, and then you're not gonna like just go up to the ceiling and cover all of those. So yeah, then there's that. And so, but none of those guys could ever tell Mike, my biological father, not to, leave me in the garage because he was best friends with the owner of that particular garage. And so, yeah, it is what it is. So then, the porcelain dolls, my biological sister had those. So creepy. She, like, her entire side of the bedroom, from the floor to the ceiling, all across from one corner to the other, just porcelain dolls. It was just the creepiest thing. Just, ugh. And then with the nightlight just shining just a little bit on the, oh, it was so creepy. It was so creepy. To this day, it creeps me out. It's a personal thing. I cannot be the only person who finds that creepy. So I'm going to continue on and then go into that. So in reference to the aspects of saluting, I have done that since I was a child. And I taught my son and my daughter how to salute the different soldiers, police officers, fire department guys, first responders, and say thank you for, your service. And be respectful and that sort of stuff. And I mean, I did that as a child. Nobody taught me that. That was just how I was. I was like, thank you, sort of thing. Like, you're awesome. And that was the end of it in that regard. And so with my children, I taught them that sort of stuff. So next set of pages, I guess let me get up closer and stuff like that. So goose, dearie, it has to do with the quadrangle. Fort Sam Houston, and I wanted to take a picture of my son. He was just close enough to the goose that was just, waddling there. And I told him to take a tiny step. Just one tiny step. Instead, he took a big step, and then the goose went and bit him, and come here. And so, I still feel bad about this situation to this day, because it's one of those, like I said, but nonetheless, my children, my son and my daughter, both on that day were very excited because the deer would walk up to where we were. And so my daughter especially would giggle a whole bunch because she's like, Mom, the deer are walking up. And then, when they'd walk past her a little bit and kind of come over to where I was, not paying attention to me. Well, yes, they are. Yes, they are. And it's been a thing that I've dealt with for a while. And so, but there was also the situation at the quadrangle where there were these teenagers that were kicking the animals, and the mom that was there was encouraging that. And I went up and I was like, you need to stop that, don't, so on and so forth. The mom, or I guesstimate at least, she went inside to the police station to come and have the police officer tell me for her that I had no right to tell her children not to kick the animals. In which I told the police officer, well, maybe she should have told them that, and then I wouldn't have had to tell them not to kick the animals on a military base. Just gonna throw that out there. The officer agreed with me, so he went to go speak with her. Well, the whole time that the officer was speaking with me, she was doing these childish faces, so I just used one particular finger to let her know exactly what I thought her IQ was and what she could go and do. And then she threw more of a temper tantrum. And you know, if she had just told her teenagers to not kick the animals, and then go and get the police officer to tell on me for telling her children, you see this issue, right? To not kick the animals. I mean, it was better than what I was like thinking when I originally went over there. I mean, realistically, comparatively to what my thoughts were when I went over there before I told her children, the teenagers, not to kick the animals. I mean, in my thoughts, you know, well, I'll just continue on and say that I didn't do it, obviously. And so, you know, I mean, you know, I am from the East Coast. There is a saying, and it has to do with water. So then there's the drive-through aspect in regards to the New Braunfels safari, the New Braunfels drive-through safari. And I had asked my son and my daughter, because we were driving through, and I was like, which way do you want to go? Because there's one section where you can either go to the left or go to the right. And both my children, but my daughter just screamed it, gotta go to the right, Mom. Always go to the right. The right is always right. And it's like, all right, you know, that's fine. I was originally going to go to the right. However, I just, you know, I'm giving you options. I'm letting you know I was going to do it anyway. And so, show those pages. And so, the aspects of, you know, it was just cute because she didn't know anything, nor did my son know anything in reference to my personal political stance. So they didn't know that I'm a Republican, and they didn't know that the Republican is on the right. And so, you know, me being the way I am, you know, as I'm driving after them, I love you. But they didn't know that, you know. And so now in reference to mumbles and teeners, my daughter could not say Athena, nor could my son. And that was actually teener's name, was Athena. However, they just did not get the name Athena. They kept saying teeners. And fine. And she was tinier than the palm of my hand. So that tiny. And so, okay, fine. Yeah, fine. I could deal with that. The other cat was named Mumbles. And that was because he would walk around the house and oh, okay. Okay. And so anytime I went to because what I would do is once a week I would give them a treat. And that was a can of tuna. And the entire week, Mumbles went anytime he went by the cat food. And I was like, yeah, once a week. You don't get that often. I don't care. I don't care. And so he would follow me around the house. I don't care. I'm not giving it to you. You're going to wait until the day and stuff. So, and then that's the same thing when it came to milk. So, no. Stop it. No. And he acted like a dog because when I do that, and then he just, look at me and it's like, I don't care. You are not going to get me to do what I don't want to do. And then he'd just sit there and look at me. It's like, that, you do that. And so I had grown catnip. And teeners being as tiny as She was. Um, oh, she did not like the fact that I had kept the catnip on the windowsill that was on the second floor that had like a ledge. And it was just ideal because the sunlight went in there and I didn't have to worry about that sort of stuff. So I was growing the catnip, and Teeners being, like that big, she finally got herself, just after the sprouts came out, she got herself to be able to be on the banister. And then, and my son and my daughter would watch this, as would I, and we'd laugh because she just kept doing it. And so she would try to get up from the floor. It was like about 3.5 feet tall. And so she tried to get from the floor to the banister area, and she'd just face plant over and over again. And it was just, my son and my daughter would be like, Teeters, don't do that. And I'd look at Teeters, and she's going to do what she's going to do. And so then she got herself to where she landed on top of the banister. And so then they were like, yay, Teeters. And it's like, yeah, this is going to be interesting. What is she going to do? And then she would start running from one end of the banister all the way to try to get to that windowsill. The problem being that there was a big wooden post, which meant that she would have to lose momentum and go off to the side. And so she did not make it to where the planter was. And so as the catnip was growing, she kept trying and trying. My son, my daughter, and I would watch laughing because she just did what she did. And Ganesh, my Great Dane, would just lay down watching. It was just whatever. And so then, when the catnip was, full grown, I brought it down. Teeners was smacking my ankles. It's like, you will wait. Mumbles couldn't care less. Mumbles was just like, literally. And you want some catnip? All right, fine. And so as I'm putting it down, Teeners is just batting at my hands. And it's like, all right, fine. And then, Mumbles was off to the side. He was hanging out with Ganesh. And Teeners just hugged the planter and then jumped back and hugged it again, jumped back, hugged it again, jumped back. And then she starts jumping in and out. And I was like, okay, so I guess I understand. That is what catnip does to cats. Okay. All right. There you go. That is what it is. All right, then. And so Tina, all right, then. That is different. And what was really funny about Teeners, especially being so small, she'd go up to Ganesh, a 200-pound Great Dane, mind you. Paws were bigger than her entire body. She'd go up to Ganesh and bop him on the nose. And Ganesh would, it's like, really? Really? Little Teeners is going to mess you up that bad? Okay. That's different. And so then, there was a point in time where Ganesh was just laying down. My son and my daughter were watching this with me. And he was just laying there. Teeners went over, messed with him a bunch of times. He goes and gives her a kiss. And, then she went onto the couch, went past Mumbles, got on top of Ganesh's shoulders, right in between the shoulder blades, and fell asleep. And Ganesh just kind of looks back at her, and he just... That's all he could do was... because he learned if he moved when she was, asleep, and okay, just laid there And then he'd look at me like, Mom, save me. I know you have to go to the bathroom. So then I'd pick up Teeners. And then Teeners would look at me like, how dare you waken me from my slumber? Yeah, that's nice. I don't care. And I mean that in the Anna way. You go over there. And she would. And then take Ganesh outside to go to the bathroom because he was that scared of her. But he was also scared of sparrows. He was. Sparrows just messed him up. I was upstairs doing laundry. My son and my daughter were taking a nap. And my daughter had come out of her room, asked me a question, went back to her room. My son came out of his room, came to speak with me, asked me a question. He went back to his room for the nap and stuff like that. Continued doing laundry, and then I hear my patio furniture just being thrown all around. Obviously Ganesh is not gonna, because by that point, obviously Ganesh is gonna do nothing. So, what is going on? And I'm ready. I'm like, who? I'm gonna mess somebody up. And Ganesh was the one who was messing up my furniture. Because there were these sparrows that were sitting on the food dish and eating the dog food. And when Ganesh would try to ninja over as a 200-pound Great Dane, this one little sparrow would turn around and go, and Ganesh would, and then that would be how my furniture went flying. And so I watched that for about a half hour, because that was absolutely hilarious. I thought it was already funny enough that Teeners just like, bah, 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 to Ganesh. That little sparrow, well, whole other ball of wax. That's the sparrow was like the size of his pinky toenail. So, oh, okay, that's gonna prevent you from eating your dog food. That little itty bitty sparrow. Okay, and then after a while, I was like, okay, I can't laugh anymore because my tummy hurts, because that's what it boiled down to. So then there was the trip in Florida with the coconuts on the way to the dolphin excursion. And every time my children saw, my bad. Every time my son and my daughter had seen a coconut tree in Florida, oh, can you get a coconut from that coconut tree? No. Can you get a coconut from that coconut tree? No. Can you get a coconut from that coconut tree? If it is not about, like, if I can, like, it got to the point, because anybody who's ever driven in Florida, ever, okay, you know what? I mean, I wasn't hearing, are we there yet? So, so if the coconut tree is short enough that I can reach the coconuts, then I will get you a coconut. It also has to be on public property. Cannot be on private property, because I'm not about to do that. Well, why can't you climb a coconut tree? Oh, I can climb a coconut tree. I'm just not gonna. Why not? Because there's bugs in those coconut, like, angle. No. No. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. No. No. Not forgetting other stuff. Not gonna. No. Not gonna do it. So then, after the dolphin excursion, essentially is when the aspects of the coconuts being on the ground after the dolphin excursion, where they got to see all the dolphins and stuff like that. And as my daughter was sitting down, a dolphin just went right over her. It's like, oh, of course I put the camera down at that exact point in time. Fantastic. Well, at least I got to see it. I mean, I got to see it no matter what, because I still could look, not just through the camera thing, but I could still see. And so it was just one of those, okay, well, it is what it is in that regard. So, yeah, but got the coconuts, because there were 4 or 5 coconuts on the ground just as we pulled out the parking lot. And it's like, well, there they are. And I don't have to hear, is that a coconut tree that you can get it from anymore? And I didn't have to hear that the entire way back afterwards. And that was, not just to the hotel room, but also after the Vandenberg scuba dive, I didn't have to hear, is that coconut tree short enough? Is that coconut tree on public property? Is that coconut tree short enough? Is that... So, it worked out for me. So in reference to the, my daughter, which I know that there are a lot of children, I did this as well, that's a pumpkin-y, or, well, I didn't say that one, my daughter, pumpkin-y, and batty, and this and that, Teddy, and, stuff like that. So, then there's overprotected, and yeah, because in the stay-at-home moms group, they thought that I was overprotective because I regulated how my children ate and gave them a nap time and a bedtime. The stay-at-home moms in the stay-at-home moms group told me that I was overprotective and I was a helicopter mom. And I don't think so. Not at all. So then when it comes to the warmth of the flame, I had actually attempted to quit smoking. And I took it seriously because I was feeling certain effects from the Vandenberg scuba dive. So I was like, well, I could try it. I could see if that is a particular issue. And then I found out that I am just not a quitter. One day, and it was just before the 30-day mark, my son and my daughter were with me when we went to the gas station. And, the gas station attendant, oh, can I get you anything else? You need a pack of cigarettes? Both my son and my daughter pull on my pant leg. Please quit quitting. Please, you can smoke. Go ahead. Please smoke. And it was just, am I that bad without nicotine? We love you. Oh, okay. Please smoke. Oh. Okay, I'll smoke. And so I got a carton. And so it was just one of those, okay. No problem. Got it. And then I got into e-cigarettes, which were better for me and are. However, I do not deny every now and then I just miss that. Just that burning. It's just fantastic. However, healthy stuff. My daughter and my son thought this was particularly funny, the quack quacks. I was at a female's house, and her fiance at the time looked at the group of females which I was sitting with, and her fiance said, oh, well, I'm going to leave the hen party. And everybody said, what they said. And I said, oh, quack, quack. And he looks at me and goes, Susan, don't you know what a hen makes? Yeah, quack, quack. And he looks at me and goes, that a hen is a chicken. I thought, and so my daughter found out about that, as did my son. They thought that was hilarious that I completely, messed that up. Although, I did have that headedry on Palm Sunday in 2000. And so I was taught colors over again. And I was taught how to count over again. I was not taught what sounds animals make at that point-ish. And so, nonetheless, in regards to the status, well, my biological sister got engaged, and then there was the explanation in reference to that whole thing. And my son was the ring bearer, and my daughter was the flower girl, and I got in trouble because I wore the colors for the wedding, and I stayed for the wedding that my son was a ring bearer and my daughter was a flower girl in. And that was for my biological sister. So yeah, there was that. There was a lot of issues. I've discussed that in prior YouTube channels, video for my official channel, and in writing. So then the tradition for my son, my daughter, and I, it was to watch the only movie in full that I remembered watching just before joining the United States of America's Armed Forces, the Army branch, after fighting to get emancipated. And that was The Nightmare Before Christmas. And my daughter, her favorite character, I mean, she liked Jack. She very much liked Jack, but she just had a field day with the Oogie Boogie song. And that was her, she just thought it was hilarious for that. And, you know, my son, he liked Zero, and I liked all of them on the good side. And so, but yeah, it was what it was. As far as meticulous, my daughter being my daughter, on the swing set, that I had put in, well, I had purchased and then attempted to put together, and there was issues with that because of that cognitive stuff. And my daughter had taken one step up the stairs, down the stairs, two steps up, down the stairs. And it took her multiple times going up and down before she would go down the slide. For those who have known me, you would understand that reference of her being my daughter in regards to scuba diving and making sure that I had everything squared away for scuba diving in a different way. So in reference to Oscar, oh yeah, I had my favorite Sesame Street characters. I had quite a few. And I liked the aliens that did the meep, 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 meep. I thought those were so cute. But I thought that Oscar was hilarious. I thought that was the funniest ever because, you know, I knew people like that. And then growing up in New Jersey, I think it's Pennsylvania, that actually has a place called Sesame Place. And, you know, my biological sister wanted to find Big Bird. I have never met anybody that actually wanted to find that one. I liked Snuffleupagus. I did. However, I really liked Oscar. And so, you know, I had run over. As soon as I saw the guy who was dressed up like Oscar, I ran over and I'm like, "You're my favorite!" And the guy's like, you know, doing the character thing. He's like, "Yes, Graham, get away," doing the whole thing. "You are awesome." I know so many people that are just like you. And my biological parents had to pull me off of him. And he was like, "I picked this one because, like, it meant that no children were gonna want to have anything to do with me. Like, you are the only child who has ever run up to me." And that guy apparently had done the Oscar thing for years in a row. "You are the only child who has run up to me and been like, 'You are awesome!' Snuggles! You have a heart, you just don't want to admit it right now. You yes." And the guy just, "Stop!" I still think it's funny because that is how I just am how I am. And I did it. Yeah, I got beat in the car too, but that is what it is. That just, because, you know, how dare I embarrass my biological parents and take time away from which, you know, one Patricia wanted to go find. And I didn't even get to see Snuffleupagus. So mad. So mad. I mean, I know it was a guy dressed up as Snuffleupagus, or two guys, nonetheless. Still, I didn't get to see Snuffleupagus. So going back to these particular aspects. So in regards to Cookie, my son, for 2 weeks, when we were in Illinois it was my son, my daughter, and I, and, you know, the ex-husband, then husband is what it is, in Illinois. And for 2 weeks, Mike, my biological father, would return back to the house in Illinois, and he would give my son the Oreo cookies from his lunch. And by the third day, my son would run over to Grandpa Hom, Cookie, Cookie, and a little cookie monster. And Mike would give him the Oreo cookies, and, my son would go off and, yeah, I got cookies. Yes, I know, enjoying it. He didn't finish eating his healthy food yet, but okay. Fine. My daughter was 3 months old at that time, so she obviously could not go over there in that regard. We'll get back to San Antonio after that. And the third day is when my son, Cookie! Get back to San Antonio, go to Wilford Hall. There is an older Asian guy sitting in the waiting room, and he didn't look exactly like Mike, but there were certain similarities. James, my son, goes over, Cookie? Cookie? James, get over here. Cookie? No, he does not have cookies. So I had to explain that to that guy. He laughed because he found out that I'm half Chinese, and my biological father is a first generation Chinese male, obviously. And so the guy laughed. We had talked a little bit more as far as like my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, so on and so forth. So in reference to going to the one referencing Georgia, I had wanted to go to the Georgetown Aquarium because I wanted to go scuba diving with the whale sharks. However, because my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, didn't want my children to see me scuba diving, not that they didn't already as far as me and my gear, wasn't allowed to do that because, the night before going to the Georgetown Aquarium, she had, zipped up my scuba bag and she was like, oh, your children don't need to see that. I realize now in 2020, that was back in 2009, that, I had already told my ex-in-laws that I had put the will in their name in that regard. At that, it's been rectified, obviously. However, and plus Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen was extremely upset that I had returned the Bronze Star to the Army, and then that I did not tolerate various aspects in regards to her attitude, telling me how my house in Carrollton should be, and all these other aspects. And I didn't even know there's a Carrollton, Georgia, but this was Carrollton, Texas that she went to. And so she was very upset with that. In reference to 3D, I learned the hard way. I cannot watch 3D movies. I could barely watch regular movies in a movie theater after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. However, I learned the hard way that definitely do not do the 3D movie with the after effects of the head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And so, despite how much pain I was in, I had made a promise before going to the movies that I would take them for frozen yogurt because there's a frozen yogurt place at that particular complex where that movie theater was, or is probably. Nonetheless, despite, this is how much I love my children, despite the headache, migraine, pain levels, I made a promise, okay, let's go get frozen yogurt, that's fine, I'm in so much pain. And so I forced myself, and I did have some, and then it was worse than a hangover for me. The pain level, that, like, so those who have headaches and migraines know how that is. Those who have drank alcohol before know how hangovers are, whether or not you have headaches or migraines. And so my headaches and migraines after that 3D movie and the frozen yogurt, and I didn't eat it fast, but just because of the pain levels, it took me like 2 weeks where I felt like I just had a hangover. 2 weeks of that. That was excruciatingly painful. And so, yeah. Oh, that was really, 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 really bad. So in reference to Halloween in 2007, I had, I would get dressed up with my son and my daughter. It was, my son dressed up as the Red Power Ranger, and my daughter wanted to be a fairy princess, and I already did the fairy queen thing and stuff like that, and so got her dressed up and stuff like that, and we went around. That would be the particular Halloween that my now dead ex-husband, the last time that he was alive for Halloween, essentially, obviously, and he had gotten yelled at by somebody in the neighborhood because of his dress blues. And then he was mad at me because I didn't defend him for somebody else knowing the way the dress blues were supposed to look. I only looked at them going, well, they're wrinkled here, they're wrinkled there, they're wrinkled there. Obviously, you didn't use any brasso on any of those buttons, and I wouldn't know as far as the other stuff because that sort of stuff was not something I knew about as far as the ribbons. So why would I, why at that point would I defend the aspects of, in that reference point in regards to the dress blues and the ribbons and the medals? I would not know that. He didn't tell me who it was. He didn't even tell me when it happened. He told me after getting back to the house, after getting my children their dinner, after getting them cleaned up and showered and stuff like that, after reading each of them their bedtime stories, and after tucking each of them into bed. Then he was like, you didn't defend me. You didn't even tell me it happened until like right then and there. So I was one of those, that's not my... And, he knew obviously that I did not know the ribbon stuff, so don't be mad at me because somebody else in the city of San Antonio knows that stuff. I don't even know where, he didn't even tell me where it happened. He just said it was when going around trick-or-treating. I was like, well, if they know the ribbon stuff, that's what they know. I don't know that. Duh. It's not my problem. And so going in that next one, so my ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, had started a fight with the people who actually had the birthday party area at McDonald's for the next time. However, because Susie Marie Nichols Lopez was late, Grandpa Nichols actually made a joke saying, she's going to be late to her own funeral. And I looked at Grandpa Nichols, I was like, you don't know how right you are. Irony of ironies in that regard. Anyway, so Grandma Nichols was at that particular event. She was yelling at the people in reference to the fight that Susie Marie Nichols Lopez had started. And I just got out of the way. I got in trouble for, saving a child while I was pregnant with my daughter, as well as, moving the stuff from the reserved spot to closer to the place, not with the people who actually had reserved the spot. Those guys were like, no, we know you're cool. We know you're cool. It's like, cool, glad you know that. And the females were just like, we appreciate you moving the stuff. We know it's not your fault. Cool. Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and Grandma Nichols running their mouths and all that sort of stuff. And Grandma Nichols had said all that sort of stuff. The guys that showed up, both male and female, not being sexist, but both male and female, that showed up afterwards, after the fighting aspect, they were already informed that I didn't do anything. It was like, I'm not causing problems. I'm just trying to, it's my son's first birthday party. I'm pregnant. And, I'm about to deliver my daughter, but okay, fantastic. Got to deal with this garbage because of Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and Grandma Nichols being retarded for not, like seriously just simply taking care of the situation instead. And so the words verbatim are what Grandma Nichols had said. And so it was just one of those and by the way, when telling Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., about that, meaning Grandma Nichols and Susie Marie Nichols Lopez telling Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., about that, he thought that was hilarious. He thought that was so funny. I looked at the three of them. I'm like, I don't think like they found it funny. I don't think so at all. Like, at all. I think that you need to, like, not. But then again, Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., was a part of the World War II reenacting on the Nazi side. And there are a few aspects in reference to this book of what he had told me in regards to certain aspects. It's just one of those, I just don't. I was told it was funny. Like, I was told that situation was funny. I still don't see how it was funny at all. But I was told it was funny. I figured there were people who would be able to relate to that and maybe could and maybe I don't deny being ignorant. I don't deny that. And not knowing better. I don't deny that either. However, I still have not been told how that's funny. Like, not where I actually understand or comprehend it. Because the only thing that I cared about in reference to that particular situation, which is, I'm going to end on that particular one, was my main concern, number one, obviously my son's first birthday party. Number two, when it came to the aspects of the late thing, was getting out of the people's way who had reserved that spot and had already paid and stuff like that. So I was moving the people's stuff from the birthday party for my son out of the reserved spot, which upset those guys and those people. And then the only people who actually weren't upset with me, ironically, were the ones that actually had the reserved spot for their birthday party, because they saw that I was moving the stuff while being yelled at, while being pregnant, while trying to take care of my son whose birthday party it actually was. And then, like, I got yelled at as much, essentially, although there were certain things that occurred later that I wound up dealing with more, but that is what it is. However, the only people that didn't have a problem with me moving the stuff were the ones who actually had the reserved birthday spot, because they saw that I was dealing with being yelled at. They saw that I was pregnant with my daughter. I don't know whether they knew that was my daughter or not, but that is what it is. They saw me moving the stuff, getting yelled at, taking care of my son, and getting everything squared away, while also apologizing to them because of my ex-in-laws now and that sort of stuff, getting to the point that it was. And it was just one of those, like, I'm just trying to keep the peace. Like, I get that you guys paid, just like, my son's birthday party was paid for, for the reserve spot. I'm doing what I can to get everything out of the way, so that way you guys can have the spot. And then it just was a big issue, and Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, my ex-sister-in-law, started a fight with two of the females, and just, it was ridiculous. It was, still is ridiculous. Nonetheless, again, I also didn't realize that my book essentially looks like a police report, or at least a investigative report. Nobody told me that, because I didn't know. I just was writing and trying. Who knew? Obviously, I did not when I was doing it. As far as writing everything up, I had no idea that it looked like a report at all whatsoever. whatsoever. So this is part 1 of probably a 3 to 5 part series. Yay. And so you guys, you know, comment, like, share, subscribe to my official YouTube channel, Reverend MeeLing. And I'm going to go on and as quickly as I can go through the different stories. So that way I give more context in that regard. Because again, I didn't realize that any of this stuff could be considered needing for law enforcement. And then the irony of it looking like a law enforcement report type of stuff. So you guys have a good one.